Probably he's a very long, very, very special friend of us. He gets in there to speech. He has a special title, and I rather liked it. It was something that's an opposite, or it's in England. Do you believe what you see, or do you see what you believe? It's intriguing. So I'm keen, and I think everybody else here too likes to hear what it's all about.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, Eric, and without ado,
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you for being here. And as you say, it's intriguing, and it's intrigued me a bit too. So I'm a bit not confused, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to say now. If you look at a belief, what is a belief? It's in a way, it's a perception of reality. It's the way we perceive what is. But it's, from a scientific point of view, there are things that are. But there's also a concept of I can do certain things or not. So there's a connotation of value as well. And the challenge now is, how can I talk about belief without coming from a belief perspective? Because I can talk to you and push a belief through, or I can try to analyze belief, but how can I analyze without having a belief? So it put me in a bit of confusion as to how can I approach this without tilting it from the start, or being as objective as possible. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, let's look maybe at how a belief forms itself. And if we take a child, the child is born, he's got a mother, and then the thing starts. We cry because we need something. Parents come and take care because we cry. So we learn now, okay, if I cry, I get support. So we're forming a belief. We're starting to learn something. And it's like, if I do this, I get this response. Later we grow, and parents have an impact, because now, for example, with our daughter, she falls, we try not to act too fast. We try to pause and see what happens. And if she's okay, we do nothing, and if there's a problem, we act. Now we were visiting friends, and our child fell from a window to a chair, to the other part of the chair, to the ground. The other lady started running, and we said, stop! And our child got up and ran, but the mother was quite shocked. We, in fact, encouraged a belief system. We were not acceptable parents. So there's a reality, and then there's a reaction of a judgment there. Now, our child goes to school, and suddenly, if she falls, she looks at her knees, and she cries, and she wants plasters. It's a different behavior. Now, she's changed her response because she's been exposed to a different response and maybe seeing other things. And that has started to change her way of responding. So her belief has changed. She doesn't believe she falls and she moves on. She now believes she's hurt when she falls and she needs attention. So it's interesting to see the constant link between the experience and the belief, and how the belief then conditions the response. It's very difficult to detangle these things. We also have experiences like I was riding motorbikes when I was younger, and trying to do foot-taps past obstacles without touching the ground with your feet. And once I was behind an obstacle and it didn't look like it was possible. And the guys trying were all going down. And in front of me was a guy, and he went past it. I didn't realize who it was, but it was one of the best guys in the game at the time. I tried behind, and I was surprised because it went just easily. What I thought was impossible became possible because I saw it being made. And I didn't think, I just made it. And I was still behind him at another obstacle that was also difficult, and I passed it too. But when I tried later to pass it again, I couldn't. So there's an impact that what I see, I believe, and then I manifest. But do I retain it? So there's all these things that are coming true. Now we go to school and we get education. And education says you do it like this. I'll backtrack from school. Our child plays in the garden and she's having a lot of fun with sand and buckets. Now she comes in the house on the carpet and tips the bucket. Parents go, stop, can't do that. So we try to explain, we say, look, this is a house, it's clean, the dust stays out, we want a clean house. If we're lucky, she says, okay, clean house, I'll tip the sand outside. We, in fact, share the belief now, we started formatting, Now she has a friend visiting and the friend comes in the house and whoosh, tips the sand. She tends to go to her friend and say, clean house, the sand outside. She's promoting the belief. But we're busy shaping. She goes to school and she learns to write, to count, she's told things are like that, etc., etc., etc. And she accepts them. It's cool when they accept it, but accepting blindly starts to format us and we start to see things according to that reality. What happens now when a child doesn't want to keep the sand in the garden? We start to say no. So you say, go sit in the corner, you can't do this. Some parents go more the aggressive way. Then why would the child keep the sand in the garden? Because it has to keep the house clean, or because it's going to be hurt if it does it. It's a different motivation, it's a different belief now. If I put the sand in the house, I'm going to get hurt, so I will do it. But that, in a way, as Cody says, when you borrow strength, you generate weakness. Because now she does it cowering versus accepting a certain logic. Tricky, So these are all the things I've been playing with, and there are plenty more. I need to look at this sometimes because I confuse myself, okay? So if I confuse you, apology. Okay, so education, although it shapes us, also deforms us. So I often say tongue-in-cheek, education is deformation. We were doing a daily workshop on painting and expressing with painting. And the lady makes us play with paint, and then you have to paint something just for the fun of it. And the lady was talking, she would like to learn to paint, properly. Like you have to learn the right technique so that you can paint like the masters. And I was saying, but that's deformation. This is how you paint. Now when you learn the technique to reproduce the masters, you have an impact. You now stifle that natural style, but maybe you apply yourself. So there's always a mixture of formation, deformation. How do we balance the line? Okay. We learn hot burns. So experience now. I walk here without looking, I fall down the steps, I hurt myself, I learn to look for a step. I touch something hot, I burn myself, next time I check if it's warm or not. Trauma creates a response, joy creates a response. So all of that is starting to shape my reality, the way I perceive the world, and the way I'm going to do things or not. Values, you can't do this, you can't do that. You must talk nicely to people, say please, say that. All of that is starting to shape it, So it's got a lot of effect, impact. And I see that clock going and I'm facing what I was thinking. I was saying to Angelique, I don't know how I'm going to shape this. It can last 10 minutes or 1 hour. We'll have to see what happens. Ethics are very important because that belief system creates the playground. It gives me a sense of what I can and can't do, what I believe I can do or not. Some people run a workshop on walking on fire. Now, if I gave you the opportunity to do that in a day for free, who would be keen to try that? Jan would. Jan would, you would you? Not everybody says yes, okay? What would you do, Joy?
No, I don't
No,
know.
okay.
It's not
Martin?
my, it's not my
Well, I
thing.
do it every day when I warm up a hot plate. Put my hand quickly on it.
Okay.
How hot it is, you know, but very quick.
Okay.
So in my small way, I'm doing it.
And
But
to me, I don't think it would be my priority in that. There are other priorities.
But some people are keen. What are the key? What Rian, you were quick to say yes. What does that do to you?
It's a different experience. It's mind over matter. Can you put your mind beyond your problem? Are you willing to look for a solution and push through your problems, or are you just going to say, I can't do it, so turn around and walk away?
Okay.
What I've seen, the many people who've done that, yes, they walk across it. They don't walk, they run. They have quite a speed. I know you give them moisture of your hands, so it doesn't immediately contact, but if you do it quick enough, there's enough natural moisture over it so that it doesn't burn you. But, well,
Interesting. When we discussed it yesterday with Angelique, I said I wouldn't. And she was very surprised that I said I wouldn't. And I can't tell you why I wouldn't, but something to me says, no, I don't think I would try. Maybe I would, but my first reaction would be no thanks. And it shows we can't always explain what we believe. A belief is in us, and it's not in our mind. It's a state of being, you might say. It's an integration of something. But I can't go on the board and say, this is what I believe in, and test everything intellectually against it. Because there's a lot of intangible into what I believe. But that belief makes me make choices. When I'm asked to run on fire, even if the guy will coach me and I say, Rian says yes, the other says yes, you say yes too. Yes, Martin?
Now, it just makes me think of one of the books of Max Freedom Long in Hawaii, where they talk about firewalking, you know. And there they actually talk about wrapping banana leaves over their feet before they do it.
Okay, so they prepare themselves.
Yeah, it's a preparation.
But it implies in a way that if I believe in it enough, my belief will carry me through it. That's the implication of that thing, yeah? That by being psyched up for a day and prepared to walk on the fire, we will do it. There might be a trick, but it might be belief.
I think it's done in stages, beginner stages, and then you get more and more advanced stages as you master the technique. It's not just plunging completely all at once. So you do it in stages, you gradually adapt to the ability. It's like these people who jump in a cold swimming pool. Some of them jump immediately in from one condition to another. The others take hot showers and so on before they dive in and all this and that. You know.
But it's also, I guess, it's part of what you believe you need to prepare to be ready to do it. And when you feel comfortable,
Conditioning.
it can happen. Okay? So one of the effects of belief is conditioning, eh?
Yeah.
We get conditioned.
Eric,
Yes?
this practice, it is actually in Greece, on a remote village somewhere, and these people they call anastenarides. Maybe if you are interested, you can look at say the word. And what they do, they are going into to a kind of religious trance. They prepare themselves for about a week, fasting and singing various mantras and so on. And then in the view of thousands of people, which they are coming from all over the world, they are walking actually on the course, red hot course, and then they are dancing. And these are men and women. And apparently it is a way of, I don't know, they transcending themselves to something different, and they can't feel the heat. And it's not that they're running, they are dancing on red hot coals, and every year, once a year happens up, that are filmed by many media and many other people. So actually it is, probably it is their belief that they can do it, and maybe that.
It's a change of reality somehow.
Exactly.
They moved into a reality where it can happen. And that is now the intangible hand, where on a daily basis we manifest our belief, but we don't really see it like that. This is an example where they show you that your belief conditions what can happen. But that beliefs makes us accept and reject things. So we do things or not. The other time we were talking about food and diet, and you have a certain set of eating habit in a way, and if you get pushed out, do you believe it's right or not? Do you do it or not? The doing might create an experience that might be in fact quite acceptable, and then change belief. So it's constantly weaving in as we go along. What there is to is that belief creates a filter. It creates a perspective. Let's say we walk on the street and we get robbed. That experience of being robbed in the street creates a reality. Does it affect our belief or not? If it does, we go back to town and that reality is more alive. We're more likely to be robbed again. That's why insurance companies, in fact, increase your premium when you have an accident. You think statistically, I had my accident, why do you increase my premium? Now I've had it. So go to the next one, you didn't have it yet. But I think they see that once you have one, you have more. So they increase your premium because you are more at risk. So somehow they show that the more you are affected by something, you believe in it, you get more affected by it. So again, it conditions, we create our reality with our belief, and it's not that conscious. Angelique was talking to a lady, and the lady was upset with her car because she wanted a new car. And Angelique asked her, can you afford a new car? She says, no, but I have enough of this one, I want another one. And then her car started to give her a lot of problems. But she didn't have the money to fix it either. So she ended up without a car that she could fix, and not a new one. Because our beliefs are not always congruent. We're not aware of them, you know? And when we start to push very actively like that, she was in fact, if you start mixing beliefs, ungrateful with what she had, so she rejected it, wanting something else that wasn't part of her belief. Because wanting something doesn't mean you believe it's part of your reality and you can have it. And all of these things are at play all the time as we live. Tricky, yeah? Now, we also, that's how we create a reality, but also we filter, as we said. Because we have experiences, we start to see the world out there as that. So, two people go and have the same experience because of their beliefs, they will come back with a different perspective. The one will say the scenery was beautiful, the other one will say the food was atrocious. Because of what they focus on, the way they see the world, it's a lens that colors tends to what we see with what we believe and how our reality functions. We see what we become aware of. Okay? Now, there's an effect of also collective belief, because let's say that my belief system shapes and creates a certain space. It in fact shaped itself in the family. Like I said about my daughter, she grows up, we tell her, the sand stays in the garden, not in the house. We are in fact superposing a box. We're starting to tell her, this is okay, this is not. You have to function within that boundary. So our family has got that norm. Society has got a norm too. So we are in, yes?
We just call it working within the framework of limitations.
Yes. And in fact, exactly that. A belief is a framework, it's a reality. And you have to hope that these are compatible so that your society framework is compatible with your family framework, is compatible with whatever allows you to function and be you correctly or happy. Now, South Africa, for example, at the moment, has got different cultures in presence. Especially with elections, you see that. There are many African ethnic cultures. There's the Xhosa, the Zulus, and I don't understand them well enough, but I can see they don't really overlap. A simple example, Belgium, from where I come, they now have this conflict between the French-speaking and the Flemish. They are different belief systems, and they are in conflict. So what they are, in a way, is, as opposed to be one country with one belief, you've got the Flemish guys here, and let's say the French guys there, but this is not enough common ground for them to be happy. So the ones want to go that way, the other ones want to go that way, and they can't come to peace. It's rattling. And until they resolve that, it can't be in a global harmonious framework. Question, how do you change this? I mean, Germany and Europe, they had war in 1870, they had war in 1940, 1945, even in between. And it seems 1940, 45 has resolved something. So then they came to terms with something and said, okay, we accept a common framework. Is it stable or not? Is it going to wake up later? We don't know. So all these collective things are very alive. At the moment I got a lot of clients, it seems even here in Belgium, Muslim women. And the ones I have here are trying to find freedom, leaving their community, coming to live in another city and trying to be free. And they battle. They want to be part of the framework, but they don't know how. Because it's one thing to say I want art, it's another thing to be able to function art. To want art is not sufficient. You need to want an experience. They don't know what they want, they just don't want in. They want to feel a space. The other one in Belgium had a relationship with a European person in a situation and she can't blend because the collective is also active. These are like invisible barriers that you have to cross and they become very strong. What does a society do? You have to behave like this. And if you don't, you go to jail, we hang you, we fine you. It becomes very repressive. Religion's sometimes very strong as well. And we see it in the world. Churches can be, they can ostracize people. Islam, with women, they are quite strict. There's no tolerance. When you cross the line, you are just strict. So the collective belief, a belief starts to believe it can rule, and it will kill if it has to. But then, yeah?
Isn't this something to do with astrological limitations? Each town or district has its own astrological limitation. And if your astrology blends in with the astrology of that district or town, then you are more compatible in living there.
Yeah, I think it's more to do with vibrations. Vibrations which have been set up from this continuation of thought.
Everything will come in the pot, eh? The astrological, I'm sure, will influence because it comes to cycle and state of energy transformation. There's the evolution that you say that can lead to polarization. And also, when you start a social system like this, because it has to control the other boxes, you start to introduce things that are not always logical in the system. Like, we can't kill each other, okay? But if we go to war, I can be enrolled in the army and it's okay to kill.
Amazing.
But the guys who go there and kill people are very traumatized. Because they go through a barrier, but it's okay. I mean, would you easily enroll in the American army and go to kill Iraqis because they say so. It's not that easy to cross these lines. But somehow we created the loophole in the system that it's acceptable in that situation. Now we're starting to dilute and bring contradictions. And how do we live with these contradictions? Because we accept them as we go along. We've allowed these things to diffuse in us, to be part of us, but we are the product of other things trying to be ourselves in the middle. Okay. Where do I go with that? So what I was trying to show was there's experience, and let's say there's belief, and in between, let's say I have an experience, there's something that will check, that will say yes, no. So, do you want to walk on fire? I'm opening the idea of an experience. Check it, some say yes, some say no, depending on that belief. The belief says yes, okay, it seems to integrate, comes back and we do it. But there's a belief that says I should do something. We create an experience and it loops. And constantly it's a system that is in evolution. So you can't, in fact, and that's the problem of society, you can't stop that evolution because we constantly have new experiences. I'm going to drive home now and maybe there's an accident on the road and I stop to pick somebody and it's a very life-changing experience because I'm exposed to that. That experience can change my belief because I simply enlarge things. So now I'm never the same again because my response would be different. If it was traumatic, I'll never stop again. If it was meaningful, I'll enlarge my concept. I maybe understand another side of life. So constantly, this is moving. What does your family do around that when you start to evolve like this? Like, you become a bit like in my research of things and you start to create different concepts. Traditionally, if I have an infection, I take antibiotics. I'm starting to say, maybe there is a dynamic as well that you could look at. Maybe there are issues with your work, with your family, with this, with that, and if you work at that, it will help your system too. It's a belief now. But now I'm starting to tint the concept. Because as we evolve, we all start to believe in things. And it evolves. But the box doesn't always want that. So they try to regulate time. Now you have all the alternate things they want to regulate them. You can do this, but you can't do that. You can't talk like financial advisors. You can't give financial advice to somebody if you're not a financial advisor. So I could run a workshop and, for example, advise you on finance. I could talk of the philosophy of money, but I couldn't tell you what to do. I would be encouraging something I'm not. I'm not a doctor, I can't prescribe antibiotics. So the box is all the time trying to contain that pot that is in evolution. And that really is the dynamic of belief and action, what we can and can't do. Okay? Where will I go now? Take marketing. It's a good example. How do you make people buy something?
You sell the experience.
Sorry?
You sell the experience.
You sell the experience. How do you do that?
You want someone to believe that they will experience something.
Yes. So you show a car and you show the lady attracting the guys or the guy attracting the ladies because he owns the car. And then the next question comes with, I can't afford it, and they show you can afford it easily. Because they have a special credit card. So now your belief was saying, yes, I love this. but I can't have it because I don't have. They say, you don't need to have, you can pay me in 6 months' time, or I'll give you a special fee. You can afford it, look. And you say, hey, that's true, I can afford it. So they in fact undo the limitations of your belief, but they start to displace that framework. They play with the framework. Now we get played with many things at the moment, because there's a lot of advertising. ANC, other parties, they play with framework. Okay, they're not that visible, but marketing plays with a lot of framework, trying to make us believe we need a lot of things. In terms of, if you see things like Herbalife or health products or whatever, life insurances, that is whoosh, because they ask you all kind of questions. Say, yeah, that's true. What do I do with this and this and this? And you get confused. We see Angelique's lady. She works with houses that she rents, and she's got cleaning ladies. And now they earn a bit more money, and suddenly they took funeral policies. But they've been convinced they should have it, and they pay high premium for a cover that is relevant or not, but that is being made relevant to them. And for them it's a big contribution for something maybe that doesn't have much value. But they've been convinced they should have it. And we constantly bombarded to that. So how do we keep our head on our shoulders?
No, keep your feet on the ground.
Well, your head on your shoulders and your feet on the ground, but still you don't know. Because how do I know what my beliefs are? Hey, we're back to fear right, fear wrong. But fear right, fear wrong is linked to that. Okay, so intellectually that maybe would be what we can talk about belief. So you see what you believe, because our beliefs create a reality out there, but the reality out there is affecting our belief too. So we see what we believe and we believe what we see. It's undividable. You can't get out of that. Yes?
It seems to me that they don't want to talk enough about personal identity and luck attached to personal identity.
Yes.
You always find that they play around with this idea of personal identity and luck, like they transfer other people's luck onto other people, you know, in the hope that you buy the insurance policy, because one person's luck is not the same as another person's luck, but they don't want to know about that. So they say everybody's in the same boat with the same luck, which is not true. You know? And by making people believe that everyone's got the same luck or bad luck at the same time or whenever, you know, they can therefore promote their insurance policies.
You could actually call that karma as well, eh?
They don't actually have enough knowledge about a person's luck in one's lifetime, you know, and orientating one's statute of limitations according to one's luck in life.
But then you can also look at it. I was tempted to answer, do you think they care or they just want to sell it for earning a commission?
They want to sell it.
No, I'm tempted there. I'm saying they don't try to, in many cases, they don't try to do it for your good. They try to sell something. The one who has to decide is you in a way. But in some cases, you might have somebody who advises you very genuinely. But you can see now, I'm tempted to say, they're trying to sell you something. It's a bias, it's a belief. So I can't see it objectively now.
Well,
have to
in
come
some
out of it.
cases you have to buy it. I mean, you can buy insurance, you have to insure your car, for instance, you have to insure your house.
You don't have to.
Well, you have to have your own peace of mind. You know, these are things that have to be done. And then you forget about it. This is part of life. I think those things are good things. They must be done.
Well, I have a car and I paid 500 rand now for 12 years, per month for 12 years. On a car that cost 80,000 rand at the time and is now worth 30. I never had an accident. I've paid 60,000 rand in insurance. Was it worth it?
Well,
Yes, for peace of mind. It was my choice.
Yeah, you don't know.
You see what I mean? So sometimes you do, and you say, oh, thanks God I did because somebody bashed me.
Well, you can't be yourself. in harmony with the natural order of things.
There's that ambiguity here, because we are formed and educated to produce in the system. We want engineers, we want doctors, we want money to flow, that type of thing. So you are, in a way, hijacked to feed that reality, and it's difficult to be you at the same time.
But there's always logic. One has to always go back to logic. For instance, legal fees are so high and going to accident cases can go into millions. So you've got to protect yourself, otherwise you can lose your property or whatever. So one has to use logic with everything as well.
But your logic is still going to use
Yes,
that.
Great.
You see, that's what I was saying at the start. How can I talk about this objectively? Because the moment I start talking about it, I come from a certain belief point of view. So how can I talk about belief without having a belief?
I was reading the book of Richard Branson, his
Yeah.
autobiography,
Yeah.
and he said in there, at the age of 24, he was bankrupt, just got out of jail for, I couldn't remember the reason at this point, but he bought himself an island, being bankrupt, being 24 years old, and instead of telling himself, I can't afford it, he ended up asking, how can I afford this? And he made it possible. Now, how many years later, look at his entire Virgin Enterprises.
Yes.
It's your belief system can change if you have the will to push yourself through it. If you believe that society gave you a structure to start your life with, the structure is your fundamentals of your life. You can always change it, you can adapt it according to your experience that you picked up.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, absolutely, because your education, you see, it's got two aspects. It's formation, because it teaches you to think and to apply yourself. It teaches you how a lot of things work, plus with its deformation content. But it taught us how to use our mind and to choose and to make a plan. So under this you need to add exploration of, I'm not too happy here, what can I do to change this? And then you start to create a loop where you feed in your own belief and you manifest something that works for you. And to be grateful for what you receive, not especially to kick the box, but to grow in it respectfully, but to start to become more and more you versus the puppet that Martin was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah?
Isn't it also the deformation part comes in when you stop taking responsibility? Because essentially, yes, you do grow up in a framework, but there is also a point where you can start choosing and questioning and playing around with things. And maybe the deformation part comes in more when you start taking responsibility and go into a more victim consciousness. And as well as the society thing, it's always they, but we essentially are society, and it's not an external thing, we are it. So every time you accept something of it or participate in it, you essentially are growing society's consciousness.
Yes, you do.
So you are society. So it's easy to say they did that and they. Who's they? We are they, actually.
We are they and they are us,
Yeah.
but the environment in which you live will make it natural
Yeah.
or an exploration. If you live in a family who has what it needs, teaches you to think and relates to think as you talk about now, you will grow in that belief system. So you will see the world like that. If you grow in a society where you are more kept, or that believes in having little and is in that type of environment, then things come to you versus you creating your reality. To turn it is always possible, but it's not always that easy.
Yeah. But it's also interesting then is why you're born in a certain environment.
It's part of your
Exactly, it's like how you
your karma. You
land somewhere.
yeah. That's always the terminology I
Which
use
means
as well.
you're also contributing energetically to that, which obviously resonated or didn't or something needed to happen.
The way I look at it is it's part of you come with these stories, stories, and they attract the correspondent, so you land where that story can carry on. So where the journey stops,
Yes,
it can carry on.
Reincarnation.
And then you relive certain things and you find your way. And you see, also in our society, what do we call success? Generally, good business, money, successful. Have you ever seen an award given to somebody for being happy and in harmony? Isn't that success really? That you can say, I'm happy. It doesn't mean if I live in a shack or in the house of Remo Ackerman, because if nobody says he's happier than the guy in the shack. But this is not part of the value of the box.
It's actually all addiction too, isn't it? You're addicted to money, you're addicted to big houses, you're addicted to smart cars. You know, it's a question of addiction as well.
Yeah,
And then you just go for that, you know.
When we buy the thing and we want the comfort, we want to play, we are attracted and
Yes, yes. Or you can be attracted to security, which is nice. Then you are secure and you are happy.
But you also have the Maslow effect. If you have nothing, you need security and shelter.
That's
then you
what I
want
mean.
food,
That's- yes,
and then you start to
That's why I
actualize.
say security.
So there's always the next layer that comes in.
Yes.
I'm with you
yes.
now.
But once I think you start trying the next layer, you find that it's not what it's supposed to be.
There's
You go
always
back
something.
yes, you go back to your little secure life, which is nice. Your garden, your birds.
Okay. Martin?
I think it's also the day and age and the time you live in which makes certain things possible and not possible. For instance, I read in a book called Private Islands that Marlon Brando bought his island from a dentist. Now, how can a dentist on that person's salary own a private island? But these things were possible in those days, you see, that such things could happen. So it's actually the day and age and the times you're living in which enable you
Can I
to...
buy an island now for $80,000?
Sorry?
You can buy an island now for $80,000.
They're making these islands now.
Well, nothing to buy. You don't have to buy. Like, there are places in the world you can buy an island
Yeah.
for between $50,000 and $80,000.
Yeah, but the sea level's rising, it's not worth all that much.
Well, now I thought I would go to shift a little bit from that and look at a different perspective. Before, in the other presentations, I talked about seeing ourselves as a human being with energy, life force flowing to us, being connected to the universal field and the earth field, and that being there, naturally manifesting a certain state of being, a certain reality on earth. Okay? And another way of looking at that is to go like this. I draw a line, and here is, call it the universal field, or a guy calls it the formless substance. Okay? And we talked about the idea of walking on fire. So I put an idea there. Let me put that on the side because later I can break it. That's that idea. So that idea of walking on fire is there. And now we look at it. Where's our mind, which is a perspective? And you say, walking on fire, is it possible? Well, I burn. What I know comes in the picture on my way of looking. I consider it, and it diffuses down to say, should I, shouldn't I? Some of us have concluded, yeah, good idea, I can expand, I want to try this. I believe my frame of reference is such that I can imagine it's possible to go. Others say, not really for me, so the idea doesn't go further. But once it goes further, it allows that to duplicate, creates the box for that to manifest, and then allows it to come true. So this is an analogy of, this is a spiritual plane, this is the mental plane, this is the emotional, which is yes, no, the response. This is the etheric, the box, the template of what we are, and this is the manifestation. So we are a representation of that, in a way. Whatever the formless substance gave rise to an idea, that became one of us. Okay? But the thing is now, we talked about education, for example. So education is starting to say, What about you look at this perspective of a clean house and you add it to yours so that you keep the house clean. So now we're changing this a bit. Hey, what do you think? Is that okay? Change it. Another thing is to say, I want to sell you that car. And when I give you the idea, you can say, no, I can't do this. So they punch holes in your perspective and appease your emotions by giving you a financial plan. You see you can afford, it's okay, you're not going to die, it's fine. And then it makes you manifest now what they want you to manifest, and you end up with a car. But that is now, you've been manipulated out of where you would have been by yourself. It creates a duality because this thing here really wants to be that day. And as it goes along and gets diluted, it can also be, we get entangled. We want things for others. I really want my children to be like this. I jump from my perspective to impose a reality. So as I'm here, I get very entangled into the whole thing. How easy it is now to do what we talked about, to be what we are in the middle of all of that. And that's, to me, that starts to show a bit more what happens. And you can put education. And of course, now that we have that and we evolve, we've got experience and exploration and recalibration. And then we start to say, yes, you taught me this, but I think I'm shifting it a bit. For me, it's easier to think about it in that way. I'm shaping my belief now, like Richard Branson. I, in fact, can choose to manifest this. Changes his view, changes his response, starts to create the template. And when the template is there, the synchronicity takes care of making the rest happen. So when I have an idea of a project, it's there, and then I consider it, I go for it, and the moment I'm all clear, it's like when you see the picture of the pyramid that is dotted underneath. As above, so below. And that becomes your balancing system. Like a tap. It says yes, no. If you go to a circus and you see guys who walk on a rope, they carry a long perch to balance, and that is their reference. And it allows them to somehow.
It's like the old Buddhist thing, the middle way.
Yes.
Walk the middle way.
So as you feel comfortable, you say, shh, I open. I bring something not comfortable, I close. But of course, if there are distortions, I'll start to miss target. So I might, as opposed to direct to this, I might direct to that. So now it starts to deviate. And our challenge is to find that inner peace in a way, and to clear as much as we can as we evolve. And in theory, hopefully, we might feel more at peace if we can start to let what we are come true.
Yes,
we're back to the same language as before.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. That's mainly the thing about belief. Now what you can do with that, of course you can start to work with this, because that model one can use in starting to find where energies are in situations. You can start to realize, like if you work with a project, when people have an idea of a project, they might have an idea, but it doesn't seem that they can get the perspective. And what might block the perspective is that there are other perspectives or beliefs that are interfering. So if you start to clear the scene, they can start to have a better appreciation of the idea, and then to start to make a choice. And if they feel comfortable, they have more chances to start to manifest it. Maybe as they get more perspective here, they might change the idea. They might start to come back to it and say, hold on, if you make this more of a horizontals where I'll be more comfortable, and then it goes through. And there's that iteration that happens all the time. When, at the end of my studies, I did a motorbike trip in Africa. We were 4 guys in Belgium, and we were doing off-road motorbikes and things. And 1 or 2 of my friends read a book about somebody who crossed the Sahara on a motorbike, and they thought they wanted to do that. So they started to look at what motorbike could do and things like that. And I wasn't too interested, but they started to have the idea. And one evening, we were having a little dinner together, we kind of came to the conclusion we would like to do this. And we cheered to the fact, we do it, we're in, that's it. So we were here. And then we manifested the envelope, and of course now we went to purchase motorbikes, we had to find a way to equip them to make it work. But because the energy was there, everything came into place, and we did it. We spent 2 months going from Brussels to Dakar and back on a boat and everything. But the thing was to get that yes. And because it was a common yes, we were undivided in it. A yes 2 out of 4 starts to go like this. Once we had that point, it was convergent. And that's the difficulty of companies, of societies, etc. Because we don't have a convergent yes. Look, ANC, Coke, etc. They lost the convergent yes. Now you've got things everywhere. Okay? Another point is, we live a lot here. Our society lives a lot in the reality, which is nothing wrong, but there's the real place is in between the two, where we are floating it. I'm the expression of something, that's the reality. But my reality needs to interact. And they take this away. And then I was having a cup of coffee at the end of the street now, and I was listening to guys talking about their business, etc. They are perceiving the reality, and their perception is that reality of business, sell this, make money, do that. But they were here.
They forgot about the rest.
They disconnected from the rest. They arrived there, and now they are absorbed by this. Of course, after a while, they're going to find life becomes a bit stressful, and they're not as life evolves. They start with a family, kids, and things. They're going to be challenged some way, and that will start to kick in again, because you can stop it, but for so long. The pressure will increase, and then they'll have to revisit some parameters, likely. Another example of that is, you know, in Zimbabwe, or I don't know if you've seen the movie Blood Diamonds. Some of you. Have you seen how they change the behavior of youngsters? They drug them, they expose them to violence. So by drugging, they confuse this. And then they expose them to violence, which is traumatizing, and in fact against their belief. So they don't know, they lose perspective. And then in the movie, they blindfold the young guy, they give him a gun, they make him shoot. And when they take the blindfold off, he killed the guy. And he's so confused here that he buys into another, he can't live with himself, and he believes now he's that in a way. So he shifts his reality to being that's what they wanted him to be. He's lost track of what he is. And he's a loose cannon at the mercy of others. And in Zimbabwe, apparently they were doing the same. In Time magazine a while ago, a few years ago, they were talking about that. They make the boys rape the girls. And when you move into that space of abuse, you create that same confusion. And then they can't accept themselves anymore. They lose that belief, that peace with self. And then they lost it. And now you can make them go and break everything because they identify with that.
There's no boundaries.
There's no more boundary, and there's an identification with I'm a bad guy. I do that. And that becomes very difficult because you're out of yourself as opposed to there. Now I don't know how to bring them back. I haven't had that situation yet. But that's how belief affects us and how I think one way of looking at it in terms of flowing. If if you have questions or if you want to play with concepts, it's up to you. Yes, sir.
Eric, on a practical level, how do you detect if you are not in your space, meaning other influences are coming from the side and pushing you out of your layer into another system? How do you practically go ahead and detect them and then release those beliefs and then go back to your space?
I think what you always have is that feeling uncomfortable that things don't work. It's invariably the same thing. Like if people go and see somebody, being a doctor or anybody, for assistance, is because something is not working. So you find there is discomfort. And if you explore a bit and get a person to talk about things, you'll find they're not comfortable with certain things, although they don't specially identify what is the issue. Like yesterday I worked with a lady and she had a relationship with a divorced person, and later the divorced person went back to his wife. And now she was not comfortable vis-a-vis couples, having a couple, because she wanted him, but he's married. And she had to understand that her value system doesn't allow her to have an interaction with that man because he's married. But that put her in a contradiction state. She wanted something behind what she accepts as a value system. And she couldn't resolve it, so she started spending a lot of energy with it. And the working ended up with a karmic thing, situation involving similar energies, but for her to release wanting that person and accepting a couple as opposed to that couple. But it was about working with a belief and then cleaning your perceptions and your connections so that you could come back to be able to live your belief in context. And you do that intuitively by identifying links and guiding the person towards connecting and then assisting to shift that. But you don't target just beliefs, you target the whole thing and you see where it takes you.
I think if a person feels that there is a need to accept certain things, certainly there will be a paradigm shift.
Yes.
In other words, that person says, I'm aware, I think this is what I need and this is something I can leave it. Otherwise, people don't change easily.
Yes.
We prefer to stick to our own frame reference.
What I found is that, in fact, if one can guide somebody, or if we can connect, exclude guidance, if we can connect in sequence to certain things to derive a certain perspective, we solve the problem. It's like Richard Branson in the island. Suddenly he realized, I can choose to make this, but he had a path. And then he decided, I can, and he unlocked it. And that's the paradigm shift.
Like a few weeks ago, I started surfing. And before I started surfing, you sit on the beach and you look at the waves and you think, oh man, that's small, that's just here in front. But until you actually get on the surfboard and you start paddling in, you get closer to the waves and they start getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And every time the wave breaks, you have to try and get over it. And when you're behind the back line and you look back towards the beach, you see them all small again. Then you start paddling out to actually get onto the wave. And when you look back every time to see where the wave is, it's this huge thing behind you again, and you're afraid, and you start paddling faster. And you actually get absolutely nowhere. It's a point of view that changes every time where you go. You can either stay behind behind the waves and say, I'm not going to make it, I can't get out from here. Or you can say, well, seeing that I'm not going to make it anyway, let's try and see what happens. Your belief changes to your point of view.
Yeah.
And you can always change your point of view, which is maybe going to change your belief system.
Yes, but if you get now rolled by a wave and stuck in there and come nearly half dead on the beach, you going back there will be a bit more difficult than if you had a clean ride.
Yes.
Because you've realized something.
You're afraid that it might happen again.
Yes.
You might not make it next time. But then you go in and then you go back in and say, let's try it again. and a lot of people won't.
You see, that's what life does, I think. We climb what Joe was talking about. You become comfortable and say, that's it, now I've done it. And then something happens because you get challenged again.
Yeah.
And constantly, when you're ready, you get that challenge because that's how you can, somehow you're ready for the next step. And it's coming at you, and you just have to deal with the wave.
Yeah.
You can turn back and come back and whatever, but the waves are there.
Still coming.
Life is the same, it's a flow and it's presenting things. And as you move, you change your makeup and you attract different things. And there's always something where you are.
But this is what life is all about. It's actually
Yes.
experience, and that's why we're here, to have that experience.
Yes.
So that we can become more and more aware and experienced of what we should do. And I think this is where the Masters of Wisdom want to put us. So that we are not entangled by all these little things, that come along with us. All these snakes that come out of bushes,
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
And to be healthy is to be able to respond, to flow. Health is response
Yes.
in a global way.
Yes.
Physically as well, if your body can respond, it's not sick. Yes, Martin?
See, it'd be nice if everyone put their mind to improving things and making the world a better place. But now when you get all these different political parties that are they pleasing each other out of existence, because they've lost the whole point of why they're supposed to be there. They're supposed to be improving instead they are all just policing each other out of existence. They're created by policing each other out of existence.
You've also
They're
got
created by the negative side of everything, instead of concentrating on improving the world.
You've also got a personality factor. Now that is the thing. In any group, in any place, in any church, in school, you're going to have this personality factor. And it's stifling.
People wanting to rule a thing.
Yeah.
That's why I think you can't rule it. You can share things,
Yes.
and people have got to make their own
But the
choices. You can't
personality
decide.
factor is something that happens. And that breaks every known group or whatever. Look at the Master Gurchav, how he spoke. He said that the personality factor ended everything, eventually. It breaks everything. Because of this difference of personalities. No harmony. Harmony is everything.
But you see,
Total and absolute harmony.
you can,
Then a thing can grow.
I think more and more, you don't have to worry about outside. What happens is we live outside and we look at us from outside. I think we need to move in, and from in, you look at outside. But outside is not you. You are you. And you can be happy in the middle of a lot of turmoil, because otherwise you want others to comply to what you think will bring you harmony. Then you rule them, but they might not be happy with that. So the only thing I can do is decide how I'm going to respond to that and respect it and find my own happiness inside. The rest, for me, whatever I look at is immaterial, because that's the only thing really that I can experience.
Detachment, in a way, from the thing.
Somehow. But to go back to Martin on your political things, you can see it as you say that everybody is damaging it and they focus on the
It
negative.
seems like many of these parties are created from the corruption of state affairs. They're not created because they've got good ideas about the future. They're more concerned about policing each other out of existence.
Well, in many cases they might want to have power, so they want to rule, so they try to become the party, for example. Others might have legitimate ideas, but you can also look at it as, this is South Africa or life trying to find its way. Is it going to find a Zimbabwe way, or a harmonious way, a democratic way? We're going to find out, eh? Time will tell. But I can't, what can I do? I can maybe stay what I am, and that radiates something, and then I can vote and put my voice in. But it's a flow.
You keep your personal identity. You've got to live within the framework of limitations.
If you say so, but maybe your identity frees you from the limitations. It's another way of looking at it. You see, it's a belief now. You're putting a
Well,
belief
let's
out.
put it this way. Let's put it this way. You have involuntary functions and you've got voluntary functions of the human body. If you mess around with the involuntary functions voluntary functions start to take over, then you fall apart and you lose your sense of perspective and direction. Then you have.
Yes. But civilizations have cycles. The Roman Empire, they come to ruling, they dissolved what meant them. Because we have the same. What we live now, I think, was made by our parents in the 50s, 60s. And they made it right because they created it. They're now retiring, they're 80, 85. And the system supported them. The generation behind doesn't care, my children don't care for the system the same way I do. They look at it and say, Dad, what do you want me to do with this? What does it offer me? Bullshit, man. And they are concerned to find their way in there. Where the others made it, I was a bit behind, already a bit under the clouds. Still, and now they think, what do I do with this? But they don't see it as their system.
They see it as a system.
They see it as a system, but they don't give it value. Where I, for example, still value it. So, of course, it's going to change. It's going to lead to a new way of being and acting. And it's changing all the time. It's a constantly evolving situation. And it goes from constructive to do and undo. And it's always life.
That's a big difference between active and dormant, transitioning towards the dormant and then transitioning from the dormant to the active.
Yes.
The systems are still in place. But when you start messing around, all sorts of pseudo systems start to take over, and then you get into a morass of confusion in there.
Well, then the system can't maintain itself. If it loses what makes it work, like you say, if you mess with your body, you can't function. The macro system does the same. You erode values, you play politics, you manipulate things, people get confused into their values. What allowed it to function is not there anymore, and it collapses. And then, of course, it's something else will have to be rebuilt. It might take a while. And that's civilization coming in and out. It's been like this all the time. I don't think it's that important. Because it's always been, and there's always something that flows. Life carries on.
Where it does become important is when you're a youngster. You've got all the time in the world to mess around. But when you get older, then time starts to get more value. And when you find if you're sidetracked as an older person, it has more of an impact on you because you don't have the time to correct things anymore. Like in the old days, you thought you had, or the young days when you were young, you had all the time in the world to correct things. But when you get older and older and older, less and less time to correct things.
But
and then it starts to become more and more important.
To me, it's not about correcting the world, it's about correcting me.
Well, you the microcosm, the world is a macrocosm.
But won't the world change because you change?
Yes, everything will change accordingly, but my job is to hold that as much as possible. And what changes the world often is that sidetracking. So the more we hold what we are, hopefully, it's difficult to, it's not written what you are, it's a feel, the more we stabilize the whole thing. It's a way of thinking. I can't prove that I'm right here. It's a choice.
That's also got something to do with biocycles. Your biocycles are more stable at certain times. Other times it becomes more unstable. That's why I say timing is also crucial.
Okay. Any more? Is it tea time?
Yes.
I'd like to say thank you. I hope I didn't take you all over the show because I was confused as to how I was going to do this. Okay. So for whatever it was, thank you for listening.
Well, I could pick those vibes of tea, from you, and I thought, well, should I leave it or shouldn't I? I think everybody's been thirsty. So really, we appreciate what you presented. give them a lot of thought, especially these very changing times and challenging times, which is very exciting. I think anybody who born this time, it's a very exciting period. So, and you've certainly played quite a bit of a role in your lectures for us to see that from another point of view. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming. We really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. And help